Most couples and most relationships are either growing and getting better together, or they are staying stuck and trapped together.
And here's the thing. Most likely, you already know that you should leave this person, you should leave this organization, you should leave this friendship, you should leave whoever it is that is trapping you. And it's a lot less about ultimately the fact that you already know and far more about the fear of what will happen next.
Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. This is Emilia. So I know in the opening, Bianca and I referred to leaving someone in the trap. And B, you had mentioned it in the context of relationships.
Leave their ass.
The sentiment here is we both align on leave their ass. And I want to expand the scope a little bit. So what we're going to be talking about in this episode and what I really hope our listeners take away with them in their day as they go about their day. It's not just about, and this is a principle that you can apply in intimate relationships. This is a principle you can apply within your culture. This is a principle about interpersonal relationships. So be it a team, be it a boss, be it a friendship dynamic, and absolutely because partners play a huge role in influencing us and our decisions in our life. Of course, if it is your partner, please, please, please take what we're going to be sharing not only to heart, but in your entire body, every single cell. Let it be absorbed, because what Bianca and I see behind the scenes between different intimate partners, between friendship dynamics, between organizational dynamics and teams and cultures and leadership and whatnot, these things keep coming up. Someone's tolerating an asshole and they tolerate them again and again and again. And then they will go into this either hands-off role of I don't know what to do and I'm just going to, kind of drift out into space with this and disengage. Or they end up, and I know this is kind of binary, but they end up in this victim role. And why me? What do? I don't know how to do. And we get it because Bianca and I have both been there when it comes to having an asshole or an a-hole in our life, be it a boss, be it a friend, be it a partner, be it even a family member. We have both been there when we actually had to tolerate this person in our life treating us the way in which we should have never been treated for far too long. So we know we're not just speaking from a standpoint of clinical data and clinical experience and advocating on behalf of our clients. We are also speaking from personal experience on this one. And so whoever's listening to this, if you're tolerating a toxic relationship or you are tolerating this asshole in your life, you're here with us. We're in the same boat. We've been there. And yes, you can break free. And so to get us started, Bianca, one of the stats that before you and I got into this episode with that I had shared with you is like the hook, line, sinker of this all is when it comes to quote unquote an asshole, right? Someone who you're in an interpersonal relationship with, right? Let's just put that right there on the board. And you are tolerating them. You're usually tolerating this person for 7 different rounds. So be it 7 years, be it 7 different breakups and coming back to one another, whether it be 7 different conversations that you've had with your boss that this really isn't working for you, you really don't feel comfortable. There's 7 times. And I just find that that is such a grounding number because I know that when you start to look at the stats of people in relationships that just do not serve them, intimate, culture-wise, family-wise, friendship-wise, insert dynamic here, you will find that stat, that's 7 times there has been this challenge to make it better. It doesn't get better. It blows up. And then there's this reconciliation, make up, forget about it, etc. That happens again and again. And I have literally so many clients that have been in this cycle, also known as the emotional abuse cycle. We've written articles about this at Evolve. And I just find it so fascinating when we as human beings, we want to believe that people will change. And yes, people can change. Yes, people can evolve. But what we found and what the data can show is that hope, wanting to believe someone's different than the asshole that you interact with all the time, that hope becomes a death trap for you. And to one of the episodes that we had done recently, when you stay in relationships that do not serve you, aka are not healthy, are not reciprocal in nature, and aka they're with people who are assholes, you actually decrease your longevity, your biomarkers, the stress increases. You end up having a lower quality of life, a lower quality of health, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is a topic that not only have we discussed in further episodes, but it's also a topic that is warranted a deeper discussion on. So where do you want to take this? What are your thoughts around this? How does Bianca Thomas want to pull in the data that she's seen? And let's hear some of your thoughts around this.
You and I outlined 6 different traps, essentially. And honestly, I think we should just go one by one and like address all of them and acknowledge how the people listening to this not maybe are, but certainly are getting caught in these in one way, shape, or form, because nobody was taught effective relationship skills. Nobody was taught effective relationship dynamics. Nobody was taught how to have a confident and empowered sense of self to be able to stand their ground and set boundaries and effectively communicate clearly and express wants and needs and blah, 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 on and on and on and on. Oh my God. So
I'm thinking,
that's it. That's the episode. Have fun. I'm just kidding.
I'm
But
thinking really quick.
yeah.
I'm thinking of a client right now who has a heart of gold, and I might send this to her. And so shout out to you if you get this. There's so many of us that do have hearts of gold that do end up in this trap. And so to what you're saying, B, it's something worth sinking deeper in.
Let's just go top down. You kind of already talked about the trap of hope that, and I can talk about this from personal experiences and also client. Actually, let me talk about a client. I have a client, 21 years old.
Yeah.
I adore her. She reminds me, this is not why I adore her, but in tandem with, she's just very like sweet and like funny and charming. And she very much reminds me of myself at her age. Just so helpless. No idea how to live in the world. Wears all black all the time. I didn't do this, but wears all black all the time. External shields, big gaudy jewelry, massive necklaces and stuff. Basically an entire shield of like, get away from me, because she actually can't protect herself and cannot defend herself. She's like 5'0", tiny.
Yep.
Abusive family dynamics. The father abused the mother. The family all got abused as a result of it. Terrible, terrible circumstances. And she ends up in a relationship with somebody. And I told her from the get, I'm like, this is a mistake. And I'm telling you from right now, this is a mistake. And he's going to end up abusing you. And this is going to be a really bad situation. I can read it all over him from what you're telling me. And she's like, no. You know, maybe you're right, but I'm going to do it anyways. Literally said that.
Oh,
she's like, maybe you're right, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I'm like, all right. Good luck with that. He forced her to take her virginity, tried proposing to her 3 months into the relationship. She started using drugs and alcohol again as a byproduct of being with him. He is mentally unstable and is gaslighting her and manipulating her And she's like, it's not real abuse until he hits me. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Wait a second.
She's
I
like,
just heard
oh yeah,
forced her to
no,
take her virginity. That also is referred to, for anyone who
rape.
clearly doesn't understand, the RAPE word, which is rape.
She acknowledges it too. Forced her to do it. And she's like, no, but whatever. And she goes, it's not abuse until he hits me.
Whoa.
And
What a
she's
low standard.
banking on the idea of him being able to change, because every now and then he'll apologize and he'll talk to his quote unquote therapist about what happened. And he actually has a therapist. And even the therapist said, you are demonstrating psychopathic tendencies. And she hears that and goes, oh, I can help him. I can change him.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, honey,
Oh.
no, he's not going to change. Your life has significantly gotten worse as a byproduct of being with this person. But she's hoping he'll change. And she's like, if I love him enough, if I show up for him enough, if I care for him enough, if I do all of these things enough, he'll change and he'll be the person that I need him to be. It never works.
No, it doesn't.
It never
it just
works.
Gets worse. It gets worse.
It always gets worse. How are you going to change him? How are you going to change him if he's already doing all of this stuff? How are you going to change him if everything that's happened in his life up until this point hasn't changed him? You think you're going to? You think love is enough? And if he loves me, he'll do it. Love doesn't mean shit. Let's be honest. I actually just uploaded a video on YouTube talking about this. This will have been a couple of weeks ago by the time that this episode comes out. This is on the 9th that we're recording this. We really think that love is enough? We really think that love is going to rescue us all from the evil that's in the world? I promise you it's not. You know what is? Real change. Real growth. Real humility. Real hard conversations and consistency and the willingness to change. Why would he change just because you love him? You're basically giving him every reason not to, because he's basically learning, I can do whatever the hell I want and nothing is going to happen, and I will gaslight her into believing it's her fault, and she'll believe it because she's weak.
And that's one of the things that, speaking of the trap, because deep down, most people that stay in for too long, right? We refer to it playfully as overcooking the turkey. Do you undercook or overcook the turkey? AKA, do you leave relationships, intimate or otherwise, way before you actually can get deeper in the intimacy or knowing each other, right? That's someone who is terrified of intimacy. Or do you overcook the turkey where you're constantly holding out hope, believing that this person will change, even though the ratio of evidence of helpful behavior within the confines of the interpersonal relationship that you have is a 1 to maybe 70 bits of data and evidence that supports the 70 representing horrible asshole related behavior that's disrespectful in nature. And that 1 to 70 ratio, what we're talking about is it just keeps getting 1 to 100. But here's the thing, what I find is so interesting, that like from a cognitive distortion standpoint on this, Bianca, is that the one shred of evidence that person has, because deep down they feel powerless, incapable, unworthy, unlovable, whatever their core wound is, their protective parts, instead of actually having to turn inwardly and focus on how weak they are or how low self-development that they have on their own self, or their own trauma, their own stuff, right? How incapable they really do feel, how powerless they really do feel at the deepest levels. Instead of actually looking at that, their cognitive distortion jumps in and says, hey, remember that one piece of evidence that we have that this person's not going to be an asshole for every other 70 interactions that we have? let's magnify that so that that one bit of quote unquote hope or glimmer or good behavior, whatever, respectful behavior, respectful word choice feels like a 100, so that the 70 bits of examples that we have on repeat don't feel as big, don't actually get the credit that they deserve, so that I don't actually look in the mirror of how much this person is a jerk, how much this person is abusing me, how much this person is exploiting me. I have someone who's coming to mind right now who has been emotionally, psychologically, sexually, physically, and now financially exploited by someone who has been such an a-hole that in now hindsight has now recognized how much this person has even been more of an a-hole than they were willing to give them while they were in the trenches, even knowing that this person was an a-hole. So it's fascinating because to what we're saying is it's just going to get worse. And this cognitive distortion, this belief that that one glimmer of change, or, oh, they've changed, or, oh, they wouldn't do that to me, like that's just such a narrative that gets such a slippery slope. And this holding out for hope, overcooking the turkey, really convincing yourself of this narrative that this person's gonna get better. Delulu in this case is not the Salulu. The Delulu ensues. In other words, the delusion that you have about this person and their behaviors and what their intentions are, it will ensue. And it's so true. If you need me to say it another time, the Delulu ensues. The delusion ensues because we're not looking in the mirror and we don't have the courage and the guts to really stick up for ourselves in that. And I've been there. Like, again, to that 7 times I had been in a relationship for over 8. Yeah, it was around 8 years. So that's over the 7.
Jesus.
And it wasn't until there was a hole punched right next to my face and I looked at my dog shaking. Not me. Not how that could have just been my face punched in, but it was looking at Bush Took a Wolf and saying, holy crap, I can no longer refuse what is right in front of me, what is right behind me. The Delulu no longer can ensusu because now the fear is at a different level. So this fear of what will happen next, if you'll be alone, or what will happen after if you leave this person that you've been tolerating, right? You get what you tolerate. I used to hate that saying, but I really do know how much evidence supports that.
You and I were talking before we hit record, and I've brought this up on a previous episode. There was this relationship that I was in when you and I first started the Why Power podcast, when we first started. Mm-hmm. And I convinced myself I was in love with this person because they and the circumstances that I went through with them got me out of my house from my parents.
Exploited your lack of worthiness, in other words.
Well, keeping it high level, when I first met this person, I was still dating women and I thought that I was going to marry a woman, and I wasn't out yet to my parents, and I met this person and we were at the beginning stages of the relationship and my parents found out, and back then they were still very ignorant and very prejudiced towards gay people, being in a very Middle Eastern family, and it caused so much tension at home, and it was so bad for me living there that I had to leave. Mm-hmm. And I had nowhere to go, and I was so fucking incompetent. I couldn't do anything. You guys, I'm not exaggerating. I didn't know how to do anything. Nothing. Everything was taken care of for me. I don't know how to do shit. So I get out of this, I leave, I move in with this person, and it was a nightmare. And the entire time I'm convincing myself, no, it's fine, no, it's fine, no, it's fine, no, it's fine, no, it's fine. Even though it was terrible. And she tried pulling me away from Emilia. She tried pulling me away from Alan. She tried pulling me away from now Evolve. And We got a house together. We were about to buy a house together. We got a dog together. We did all of these things. I was somewhat financially dependent on her. And we broke up. And the only reason I ended up leaving was because I had a call with Alan, my business coach and Emilia's partner, later on in the day. And we got into a huge fight about it because I wanted to grow and she was gaslighting and manipulating me, trying to make me small so that I wouldn't make her uncomfortable. And we got into a huge fight about the fact that, you know, I was trying to change and blah, 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 blah. And she basically barricaded me in the bathroom and wouldn't let me leave. And I was huddled next to a toilet on the floor in the fetal position, screaming, "Get away from me." Hysterically crying, screaming, rocking back and forth, saying, "Get away from me, get away from me, get away from me." And then a day later, when I came back to the house after I left to try to get my stuff, she locked me out of the house and then finally let me in after I was screaming to let me in the door. And then when we were upstairs and I was trying to grab my stuff, she got so mad she threw a hammer across the room that almost hit me. That she was aiming for me, but it missed. Like, we are all in relationships and we've all had relationships like this. Maybe not to that level, but on some end of the spectrum around that. I was so delusional. And I had so much hope that it would be different and that maybe I'm wrong and I'm too afraid to leave and I'm not capable of doing this on my own. And what am I going to do without them? My entire life has changed. I had nothing. I had $25,000 in the bank when I met this person. I had literally nothing left. Nothing. My entire savings was drained from being in this relationship. I had nowhere to go because I was not going back home, even though my parents wanted me to. Wasn't going to go back home. I didn't know how to buy an apartment. I didn't know how to do anything. I had nowhere to go. And I didn't even have a job at that point. No, I did. I had just started a job. I was trapped. I was literally trapped. And it took a hammer being thrown at me and me literally reverting back to being like a little child in the fetal position, screaming for me to finally leave. And if that's me, what the hell is happening to other people? I mean, we hear the stories.
Hello, everybody. My name is Derek Smith, and I'm the department head of the Evolve Venture Society page. I just wanted to come on here and talk about my time at Evolve and being a team member. It's been nothing short of phenomenal. And I don't say that as somebody just trying to hype up the team or the business or anything like that. No, it's genuine, and like genuinely, I've never been a part of such a group, had people that were so invested in me, being able to keep me accountable and like pushing and really just supporting me for my own growth. And the amount of things that I've been able to help and influence, manage in myself, learn about, and just being a part of this community, all under the guidance of Bianca and Emilia, for me that's just been phenomenal. So my time here has just been very, very blessed. So thank you, Emilia. Thank you, Bianca. You guys rock.
And it's not 20-year-olds. We hear stories of high achieving, well-known individuals who are going through similar things and who experienced the same narratives, who experienced the same pot of boiling water, because that what I will always say, and thank you for sharing that again, because it's what ends as a hammer being thrown at your head, or what ends as a hole next to your head, or what ends as, in some horrible cases, financial exploitation, chronic abuse, rape, horrible things, right? People just totally manipulating you, maybe breaking up families, breaking up marriages, maybe even ruining your business and your reputation. Whatever that endpoint is based off of your ability to take radical responsibility for your life and for your life circumstances.
100%.
But that always starts, that hammer, that breaking up of a family, that breaking up of a marriage, that hammer at your head, hole in your head, whatever, even you being a battered victim of domestic assault, violence, etc., like whatever it is, exploited, maybe losing a job, whatever. Even someone that's coming to mind who was sexually assaulted by someone who she thought was a friend in her workplace, whatever the end point of your experience is, it starts, look at the other end of the spectrum. Where did it start? It was a boiling pot of water, but it started as a cold pot of water that you got yourself into with this relationship. And then it started to increase. Then the temperature of that relationship started to turn up, and that temperature is representative of their asshole or their disrespectful behavior or their belittling behavior or their trying to exploit your wound, your trauma, your level of thinking, your lower level of development, your incapability, your feeling of feeling powerless, your insecurities, your feeling of unworthiness. And unfortunately, if we're not attuning to what those micro signs are, and we have an Evolve article that showcases this literally in a graph that I'll make sure that our team links in there for you to read. It starts so small, and then it builds, and then it builds, and then it builds, and it builds because you tolerate it. It builds because you're in this trap of hope, just playing a victim card, not also seeing that you have radical responsibility to yourself, to take care of yourself, to put yourself in relationships and pull yourself from relationships that are not helpful, that are actually hurtful by default. But here's the thing. We do not break free because we're so terrified of what's going to happen on the other end, whatever that end point is. We have this cognitive distortion, and it's wildly documented, where we have this belief that, oh, it's just like, in some, I know this is a graphic example, but if there's a school shooting, right? You hear about, let's say, Sandy Hook. You have this cognitive distortion that it will never happen to me, or it would never happen to my kids in the school that is in my town. We have this belief that gets in the way, this distortion, that it won't happen to us. And that is one of the most faulty beliefs, faulty distortion that allows us to stay in this trap, that allows us to convince ourselves of these narratives instead of actually looking at what data is right in front of you. And that's where those rose-colored glasses are. That's where those Delulu and Susu glasses you put on. And if you're convincing yourself of this narrative, you have these glasses on, of course you're going to stay. Of course you're going to feel powerless to break free. Of course. Hence the necessity to take this episode seriously. What, and this is where we're going to round into, Bianca, I want to make sure that we go into the how-to and start to break free, because I'm not expecting if we send this to someone, they're going to all of a sudden quit it. They're all of a sudden going to break up. They're all of a sudden going to leave that job. They're all of a sudden going to leave that, whatever it is, right? Leave their ass to our YouTube thumbnail. I'm not expecting that, because we know how the brain works. And most people do not cut cold turkey. And most people actually are getting benefits, quote unquote. This emotional hope keeps you in this state of not enough pain to where you need to leave. And the fear of leaving is way too scary and overwhelming for our emotional sensory perceptions than it is to actually look at the evidence and to zoom out, to mitigate this cognitive distortion of that it actually will happen to me. And I'm actually increasing my probability of becoming a statistic, a newspaper article that other people read about. That 100%. Is what's happening. So what would you say for someone who is listening to this and is picking up the vibe, knows that it's not about like, we know we need to leave this person. We know we're terrified of what's going to happen on the other side. We know we feel powerless, incapable, unworthy. We know all of our circumstances point to stay stuck, stay tolerating, because that's easier. What would you say is one of the first go-tos?
I do need to address this before I do that, Emilia.
Mhm.
There are some circumstances, and I need to say this, we are not blaming the victim. That is not what we're doing. A lot of people are going to hear this and they're going to say, you two are so heartless. How dare you? How dare you say that it's my fault or that it's this person's fault? How dare you say that I'm just delusional and that I let myself get into this and blah, 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 blah.
I would say that too if I was back in my situation. 100%.
But there are, I'm thinking of some clients, and I know of some circumstances where it actually would have been substantially dangerous to try to leave.
Yeah.
I had a client whose life and the life of her family was literally threatened because her partner was an actual psychopath, sociopath, who would have tried to kill her and her family. There are certain circumstances where that absolutely is the case, but that is not the majority.
I was just going to say, but when we really look at that from a statistical standpoint, and I have to not rumble against you, Bianca, rumble with you on this. That is not the majority, and most people aren't thinking rationally when they're in this trap. And I sure as hell wasn't. Most people are just going to that catastrophization of, well, that one psychopath that I read about in the newspaper. And I know I witnessed this too. Oh, my dad used to read stories about these people who would get battered by their boyfriends. And because of this, it instilled a fear that that might happen to me. Even though we have this cognitive distortion that it's not going to happen to me, deep down inside, there's this fear that's saying, well, what if that worst case scenario that I read about or I saw on social media, or like the Gabby Petito case, right? Like if I do anything, then my boyfriend's going to all of a sudden try to kill me, right? Like that is not the reality of most people. And when I say most people, it's probably, when we look at a numbers standpoint, 98% of individual circumstances.
There's very few. Yeah, there's very few circumstances where that's actually the case. Like more likely than not, they'll flip a shit and they'll try to threaten you, and then that'll be the end of it. Like that's literally what happened with you and I. They threw a hissy fit, and then that was it. That was the end of it. We are not blaming the victim. We are not saying it's all your fault and you deserve what you got. We're victims too. You know the difference? We didn't believe that we were victims. We were victimized, but we were not victims. And there's always something that you can do. I know that a lot of people don't know how to catch it in the beginning. I didn't either. The amount of abusive relationships that I've been in, whether it was physical, sexual, or psychological, every single one of them, everyone, except for the last one. But like, we've been there too. We didn't know how to catch it. That's why we do episodes like this, so that you can actually hear from two people who have gone through it. There is an out. There is a way to catch it. And if you're in it now, there's things that you ignored. There's things that you didn't pick up on. There's things that you conveniently looked past. There was yellow flags and orange flags and red flags that you didn't want to look at. Yeah. And we were there too. And if you're there, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you feel so trapped, that this is the only chance for you, that this is the only thing that you can have. And I'm here to tell you it's not true. There is an other side to this, and that's what I would say. You have to know, or you have to start to believe that there is an other side to this, because if you don't, you will stay stuck It took me being in the fetal position, coddled next to a dirty ass toilet, screaming, crying for me to finally leave. You shouldn't have to get to that point, and you don't have to if you really take what we are saying seriously.
And you don't deserve that.
Facts.
You never deserved this. Like, and I so appreciate you sharing that to anyone that is listening, because I know after being behind the scenes with individuals, and I know at my own experience and run-ins with this, be it an intimate relationship or be it a horrible boss or be it an exploitative friend, I know that at some point there was a thought that ran through that, like, I must have done something to deserve this, right? We end up gaslighting ourselves sometimes, and we end up becoming the victim of our own narratives and what we're convincing ourselves of. And so I want to share that to everyone who's listening to this. You don't deserve disrespect. You do not deserve to tolerate assholes. You didn't earn this, or you didn't evoke this, right? Like, it's just not okay to not say that. And Alan and I, for anyone who's a new listener, Alan is my partner, the love of my life. And he and I, Bianca, were talking last night, and we were sitting on the couch and kind of winding down from our day. We had watched a movie that Alan had watched back in, I think he said it was 2014 when it first came out. It was 300, or the second 300 films. Very
He
low vibe,
loves those
honestly.
movies. He
I love
always
those
references
too.
them.
Oh, I love them too. And it's really cool that he and I both have very similar movie taste. We watched it last night, and in reflection this morning, it's like, that's really low vibe and not virtuous movie. So anyways, watch that should you want to, but just putting a disclaimer out there. But the point of why I share that, Bianca, was because he and I were reprocessing, and at the time when that movie came out in 2014, he had said that he was at the Providence Place Mall, and he was watching it with his friend Kiki. And afterwards, once they were done, he actually had gotten jumped, him and his friend, while they were paying for parking. They got jumped by someone who was schizophrenic and hadn't taken their medication, who had gone to the film, watched it, and then had a psychotic episode in that moment, jumping his friend. And Alan had run, and his friend pretty much went into a freeze response. And so Alan, before we watched this film last night, he said, I just want to let you be aware of, like, this is that film that I watched back in 2014, and I haven't really seen it since. And honestly, I didn't even process this film, because after I had gotten jumped, like, it was just a total it was chaos in my life, and so many things changed. And I share that because after we were done watching it and processing through, and I, created a safe space for him to be able to process, and we were both like in the agreement that that was a icky, they like went really dark in that film, and we were processing how he had gotten jumped and what that was like for him, and seeing his friend, and just all of that, how that changed his life. We said, isn't it weird to think, because at the time in 2014, he's 6 years older than me. I was just starting college and university at Providence College. So I was going into my freshman year at that time. And he and I were just thinking, isn't it wild to think, like, in 6 years from that time when I first watched this film, like, you and I would meet, and you and I were literally in the same town, or same city, Providence, probably not too far away from each other, and might have been in the same place, same time. Like, I might have been going out that night or whatever. And it's just wild to think about. And why I bring this in here is because, to anyone that is in their moments of tolerating an asshole, I was like, oh my God, I was in a relationship at that time. Like, I remember trying to convince myself of a story that, like, this was going to be, like, everything was going to be fine. But, like, in reality, my relationship in the intimate arena, my partner tried his best to be supportive, but he was kind of an asshole when it really did matter. And so just reflecting on that, we oftentimes don't think, and just like as we were reflecting last night on the couch, at that time, my freshman year, I wasn't thinking 6 years from now, when I stop tolerating this asshole, my life partner is going to come into my life. My best friend will introduce me to my life partner, the person who has been the most respectful human being I've ever experienced in my entire life. And when we're tolerating our own version of our assholes that we're tolerating, whether it be an intimate relationship, a friendship, etc., we forget how life can unfold for us. We forget when we take radical responsibility what the subsequent events can be for us. And so I just want to share that for anyone who might have hope in the wrong direction, because I know I certainly did at that time. There was a part of me my freshman year that had hope that this isn't it. Like, this isn't it. This can't be it. This relationship, these friendships that I have, they're really not meeting my needs. They're really not the best friendships ever. This can't be it. And so I loved what you said about we are not victims. We just simply get victimized. And I think that that's such a beautiful sentiment, at least for me, to really endorse, because there will be moments and circumstances where we feel like a victim and where we do get victimized. And we might have a part that's playing that. I don't know what's in my control and what's within my responsibility. And I know all too well what that feels like. And when you have hope in the right direction, hope for a brighter future, hope that this isn't it, this can't be it, and you have someone like Bianca and I sharing this with you, dear listener, that you can have hope in a better direction. And there are people out there that want to see you thrive and flourish. It is possible. And yes, it's possible for you. And I can say, sure, shit, be it that relationship, other work environments, friendships, it is sure shit worth it. And I am now on the other side of that, where I literally am sitting down, reflecting on it with a person that's the love of my life. I'm able to talk about it with my best friend on this podcast, and I'm able to speak into the lives of so many people that I don't even know. And I just need to share that hope can find a way in a different direction than the hope that is currently trapping you. So that's my closing sentiment for anyone that is listening to this episode, because I know how difficult it is to actually break free.
That was very well said. We'll leave it there. Well, yeah, to say the least. Oof. Before we give our episode suggestions, please reach out. You do not have to go through this alone. You do not have to suffer in silence. There is an out. And you're listening to two people who found their way out and made it their life mission to help other people do the same. So please do not suffer in silence. You do not have to. There's two people right here who are willing and able and capable to help. My episode suggestion is 398, a powerful way to never be manipulated again.
My episode in closing is 340, finally putting an end to self-doubt. Bianca and I are not just saying what we're saying here to have it fall on deaf ears. We invite you, we encourage, and if you're the type of person that gets excited by a challenge, we challenge you to reach out. She and I both have spots on our calendar and would be more than happy to hear your story, to hear how you're struggling to break free. And every single Saturday, we offer 30 minutes as Service Saturday to individuals just like you who are going through it. And so please take advantage of that. Send us a DM, say I'm struggling to break free, and we will set you up with a system of success that will help get you out of this toxic, intolerable relationship. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick, but at least you won't be doing it alone. So with that said, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us.
See you next time. Bye, everybody.
See you next time. Bye.